go. Yeah, you can't run from me. Let's get him. Get him. Oh no. No, run. No, we can talk about this. Please.
So good and tasty?
I've got my coffee, I've got my handler, I've got my cat. I'm bringing country back. Hi, how's it going? This is Monster Hunter Wilds. I've been playing this game for a few weeks now, and let me tell you, this is big. Yeah, that's to be expected from the series, but Wilds rarely ceases to be effortlessly beautiful, cinematic, and thought out. As soon as you begin playing this game, it immediately becomes clear just how special it is. There is a world to explore here, and it's nothing short of incredible. But what about the gameplay, the story, the multiplayer, the monsters? Well, let's take a deeper look at Monster Hunter Wilds so you have a better idea of if it's worth your time and money. The next entry in the mainline series, following Monster Hunter Rise and the colossal Monster Hunter World, you'll need to be ready to grab a weapon that makes the Buster Sword look like a toothpick, play dress up with your cat, collect bugs, and go fishing. Also, hunt monsters and stuff, I guess, but this might be a cozy game at heart. It's just missing some town building and a tax-hungry raccoon.
We no give back. We have claimed it as tribute.
That's close enough. Monster Hunter Wilds keeps the traditional gameplay loop of crafting some cool gear, eating some ridiculously delicious looking food, though not made by the cats this time, unfortunately.
Who wants a f***ing burger?
And heading out into the varied locales to track down monsters, whether it be to capture or to slay, before coming back to make even cooler gear and more delicious food, and doing it all over again. It's a simple gameplay loop that offers a plethora of things to do and can easily keep you occupied for a long time, and it probably will. Monster Hunter Wilds is here to take the series in new directions, building on what makes these games great for both longtime fans and newcomers alike. It's the first time we're really getting an open world Monster Hunter game. Traditional map structure intact, but everything else is much more seamless, and it makes for a brilliant evolution to the formula while keeping it solidly familiar. With the best graphics we've seen in the series to date, full utilization of the best features over the years, a surprisingly predominant and enjoyable story with amazing cinematics, and the monster hunting, capturing, and tracking that has been so beloved since the PS2 era, this is a game for your radar in 2025. So let's really get into everything here. First off, let's clear things up for the new recruits into the guild. Welcome to Monster Hunter, and this game is great at being that warm welcome. You don't need to have played any other Monster Hunter game before this, and Wilds will ease you in with story, action, and plenty of explanations on how the fundamentals work.
Alrighty. Perfection.
I'm ready.
There'll still be a learning curve in the weapons and just how the flow of the game plays out, but with plenty of options for auto supplies on expeditions, and even an option to ask for optimal recommendations at the smithies and when cooking meals, it's easier than ever to take the game at your own pace. You also have freedom in how you want to familiarize yourself with everything after the opening of the game, more so than the previous entries. Do you want to focus on the story? Do you want to undertake optional quests? Or do you just want to wander out of base camp and go explore and collect and maybe battle a monster or two while you're there? The choice is entirely yours to make, and the options and variations in how you want to do what you want to do make for a refreshing experience, and one that's perfect as an introductory first step for anyone interested in trying it out. So now let's talk about the story. or at least briefly and loosely. I don't need Capcom rocking up to my house uninvited. I'm only really allowed to talk about the first chapter properly at the moment, but it's an excellent introduction to this new world and the new characters we'll be traveling with. You are, of course, a hunter who is joining an expedition into the Forbidden Lands, where new monsters, cultures, and mysteries await. As I mentioned before, this game is actually really strong in terms of story, and the cinematics alone are just absolutely brilliant and breathtaking. Even just the opening, it's incredibly exciting, diving headfirst into the action more than ever before. It took me around 25 hours to finish the main story in Monster Huner Wilds, but as many of you returning fans will know, the credits rolling is where these games really get started. Man, I really can't say much here about the story. It's good. It's really good, especially when... While I can't actually show anything about this portion of the game, there is a significant endgame to Monster Huner Wilds, as you'd expect. You'll unlock high rank, where new storylines, monsters, gear, and significant changes to the world and flow of the game begin to take place. It really does feel like you get to play a fantastic Monster Hunter story, and then after that, get to play one of the best Monster Hunter games for much, much longer. In many ways, and in some really cool ways, it genuinely feels like a completely different game once the credits have rolled. Okay, so forget the story. Let's talk about the characters. Actually, no. Can we talk about this?
Thanks, partner. In that case, I need flash flies.
What the f*** is that? Luckily, you can switch the Palico language back to meows. So yes, absolutely, please and thank you. I do not want my cat to speak English. That's weird. They're not supposed to do that.
I knew you'd get it.
But as for the human characters who are allowed to speak actual words, I'd say you get a great mix of people throughout your journey, and from your constants to the people you'll meet along the way, they're all likable and have moments to shine in the story or cinematics. Except this guy, he's just kind of rude and mean, honestly.
Sorry, who are you again?
But in terms of your consistent team, you have Alma, your handler, your own custom Palico, this is mine, he's called Beanbread, and then this cool guy, a Secret, who has saved my life many times already, and he glides. So yeah, he's pretty cool. And I think what really helps to elevate these characters further is having a voiced protagonist this time around.
I'll try provoking it with an attack.
It might not be everyone's preference, but with voice customization, dialogue options, and some great moments that give our blank slates a bit more narrative depth,
I'll take it from here.
Counting on it.
I personally think it ties everything together and plays a large part in lifting the plot points to more distinctive heights.
I hope I can live up to your expectations.
And sometimes the best thing is just messing with your cat. Now, I mentioned the world being a highlight of the whole game at the start, and the biggest reason for this is the scale of it. Monster Hunter has traditionally featured segmented areas that you access through quest instances, but here you can just head out whenever. On a hunt, on a survey, or change it up midway through. You might even get a notification saying a certain monster has appeared in the locale while you're just doing some crafting in base camp, in which case you can just run off and track it down. It certainly shakes up the gameplay loop a bit, but it gives you a lot more opportunity to actually take the time to explore this world and see the uniqueness behind it. Each environment is distinct, with surreal features and monsters that will reside in them, and some areas are just absolutely stunning. I often wanted to take a break and look around the area, taking it all in, and knowing I could seamlessly run between the regions made it all the better. It does mean that we lose a bit of the illusion of scale in the maps, however, Still, I'd much rather sacrifice the illusion of scale for actual scale, and here the open world stands apart from so many others in a number of ways, thanks in large part to just how distinctive so many of the landscapes are, and how dynamic they are. Yep, I think that sums it up. The monsters in Monster Hunter Wilds are brilliant. Building on the tech we've seen to bring them to life in the past, this time they're bigger, they're scarier, and thanks to the best cinematics in the series, they're jaw-dropping. Oh, poor choice of words. We've seen the series make the monsters dynamic, inhabiting the locales in natural ways and interacting with the environment and other species, but here, that's more prevalent than ever, with a seamless world for them to live in. Even better than this is setting up hunts on the go. If you see a monster has entered the locale or is nearby, you can actually just select them on the map to create a hunt, and the quest will begin instantly, leading you to the monster. Afterward, you just continue exploring, no auto-returning to camp required. And while I can't and wouldn't want to show or talk about many specific monsters in the game, some of the designs are unlike anything we've seen in the series before, and the battles never cease to be packed full of excitement. Multiplayer is where things get odd. Typical multiplayer is still intact, wherein you can join other hunters on posted quests, and then use or answer SOS flares, all that good stuff. However, if you're hoping to play with some friends in the open world, then it's a little different. You'll do your friend requests, and then set up a party link, and then you'll need to set up an environment link so that you can all sync up to a world state. As long as the progression lines up, so you won't be able to enter the world state of a hunter who's many ranks higher than yourself. When in an environment link, you can run around with your friends to your heart's content, exploring and fighting and gathering. But not quests. Yeah. You won't be able to post or undertake quests from Alma in an environment link, as these are sort of a separate instance, I guess? You'll instead have to take on field surveys, where you fight a monster that's dynamically in the locale by coming across it or selecting it on the map. It's a little strange that while the whole formula is structured to be a lot more seamless in Wilds, the multiplayer is not so seamless. Still, in its many steps, it works. It's just got some dividing lines in the things that the game offers. But playing online is still as fun as ever, and if you stick to a session of Environment Link or just joining up with hunters on missions, you'll surely have a great time with it. Monster Hunter music is always good, and Monster Hunter's music continues to be good. You know things are getting real when the choir starts shouting during a big battle. Honestly though, the soundtrack in this game is incredible, lending its hand to the masterful cinematics and brilliant new monsters. It works to smoothen that blend between every aspect of the game. Gameplay, cutscenes, battles, it all just comes together with a symphony of wonderful orchestration. Even just the opening theme on the menu, something that is always great in these games, is, of course, great. I have to make sure I have the time when I'm sitting down to play this game, because I know that the first few hours are just going to be listening to that music. We'll get into performance in just a second, but let me just the graphics. Monster Hunter Wilds is an incredible looking game, with some of the best landscapes and environmental visuals that I've honestly ever seen. The lighting is just phenomenal, the dynamic elements are fantastic, the particle effects and the weather and the water. Look at the water. I played the game on PC at max settings with ray tracing turned up to full, so it has that extra boost, but what it achieves is nothing short of amazing. There were so many times I'd probably take a hit or two from a monster because the whole scene just caught my attention with how much fidelity there was, and it would distract me, but honestly, I can't be mad about that. I'll just keep on taking the hits. There were a couple of times I'd see some stuttering or issues in certain scenes or graphical hiccups, but these were few and far between, luckily. And with some experimenting, A lot of it smoothed out with changes to the upscaling options, specifically the AI upscaling option. Switching it from this to balanced really helped out, and while the AI upscaling does show a significant boost, it proved mostly unnecessary after this. There's also frame generation, which does a lot of heavy lifting on these higher settings too, so let's talk about performance. Okay, so I have spoken to another person playing the game as well to get a range of experiences here, so you can have a good idea of what to expect from different hardware. As I mentioned, this is being played on PC. I am playing with a 13th gen Intel i7 CPU, an Nvidia RTX 4070, 32GB of DDR5 RAM, and the game stored directly on an M2 SSD. This was running on ultra-wide at 3440 by 1440 resolution. And for me, I ran the game at the highest settings on everything with ray tracing up to high, and it was honestly near flawless right out of the gate. Without frame generation, it would drop down to around the 50 to 60 FPS range on average, but with frame generation, it keeps well above this range. As I mentioned, the only real consistent issue I noticed with scene stuttering was solved after changing the upscaling option from AI to balanced, while some other graphical hiccups will present themselves from time to time, whether it be a cloth texture stretching out or a cliff face taking an extra second to load in. Alternatively, I asked Hilton from The Gamer about their experience with the performance and hardware. They're running the game on a 5800X 3D alongside 24GB of RAM and a 4060 with frame generation enabled, and that's on quality mode at 1080p resolution. They stated that the game rarely drops down below 60 FPS on these settings, only really dragging when traveling between the locales. In some of the denser locales, textures can load quite slowly on the geometry, sometimes sticking to low quality for a significant amount of time. They also noted a specific issue, as when they're running around base camp, the game sticks to about 80 FPS, but when browsing the equipment menu at the smithy, it can drop as far as 40 FPS and even lower after viewing more and more weapons. It is a demanding game, but also offers a large number of options for optimization, and further options for boosting quality while maintaining performance. Hopefully the loading errors and hiccups here and there will be patched out and smoothed over in time, but if you have the hardware for it, then this game will run almost perfectly at what you need. What about the Steam Deck? Monster Huner Wilds on the Steam Deck is not great. Whether or not we'll see some optimization for this in the future to get it to a compatible state, right now it's just not really feasible. The graphics end up muddy and performance is choppy, with this being defaulted to the lowest settings. I mean, my first time actually loading it up on here, I was trying to look around to get a feel for it, and then it just closed out the game, so that was cool. As someone who played a lot of Monster Hunter Rise on the Switch, it's a shame to not have this readily available, but with the graphical fidelity and demand of this game, I'm also not surprised in the slightest. Now I think it's time for some money talk. Monster Huner Wilds will cost £60 on Steam and £65 on PlayStation and Xbox. You can upgrade to the Deluxe Edition for £75 or £80, and the Premium Deluxe Edition for £90 or £100 on those platforms respectively. The different Deluxe Editions will give you access to a large number of cosmetics and expressions that you can use for your character or your palico. So if you like to have access to absolutely everything, you have the freedom to choose which pack is most worthwhile to you, or you could just buy the ones you want separately. Every Monster Hunter game offers its own spin, its own features, its own additions to the mechanics of the game. Monster Huner Wilds is, in almost every aspect, bigger and better than every game in the series before it. Now, you might still have preferences or fondness for other titles, and that's completely fair and personal, but Wilds goes above and beyond to bring a new kind of quality and structure to the franchise. It reaches new graphical achievements, has an incredible score to back it up, a strong story with amazing cinematics, and that ever-improving Monster Hunter gameplay that we all know and love. It's packed full of content, with so much waiting for you past the end of the story into high rank, and is the perfect title for returning fans, or anyone who has never looked in the direction of a Monster Hunter game before. The multiplayer works great, though with limiting divides between instances and the kind of multiplayer that you want to get involved in, So bear in mind that this might not be as seamless and easy if you aim to switch it up often. But if you just want to hop in for classic Monster Hunter gameplay, then you can, and you'll have a great time. There's no doubt about the fact that this is a fantastic new entry to the long-running series, and Wilds is set to have a big run if the support and longevity of World is anything to go by. But with what we have in our hands right now, this game is colossal and offers so much right out of the gates that will keep you occupied for a long time.
Nicely done, Hunter. Glad you're in one piece. Let's head back to Azu's.